evening, everyone. I am Sashi Kumar, the village head for the village of Panchayat. I know that we come from really different regions, so if you need me to repeat myself, slow down, please let me know. I also know that we are using mics, so if any technical difficulties, just let me know. I'm glad that we have our own cultural backgrounds.
Yeah, and my name is Mr. Mervin. You can call me Mr. M for short, or just M. I am legal counsel today to Sashi here. Pleasant to meet everyone.
Greetings everyone, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Premanand. I'm an activist, social activist. My personal pronouns are he/him. You can address me as well.
Greetings everyone, glad to be here in this room. My name is Pranjal. You can address me by my first name, Pranjal. Thank you. Glad to be here.
So just to confirm, it's Prem and Panja. Did I get that correct?
Yes,
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for introducing yourselves to us and of course the party as well. So I'd like to first of all begin by congratulating all of you, particularly Sarpanch Nanda, as well as Prem, for choosing to mediate and come to the mediation table. So I think that requires a little bit of acknowledgement for you to be able to take that step. Before we actually start with the process, there are a few pointers that I'd like to let everyone know. Firstly, mediation is a voluntary process, and you can choose to withdraw from it if you feel uncomfortable at any given point of time, or you feel that you need pressure to do something. The decisions that will entirely be taken by, as well as of course with the help of your community. There will absolutely be no interference from my end, that I can assure you this in terms of the decision. So the decision will be entirely taken care of by the parties themselves. The process, of course, will be guided by the mediator. Apart from being Is this better? Okay. So apart from being voluntary, this process is also a confidential process. So everything that is discussed as a part of this process will remain here, and in the event of a non-settlement, if at all that situation arises, in that case, nothing that is discussed here, whether it is any kind of proposals or any other discussions that have been agreed upon, can be used anywhere else, any other person. So it will not be subject to any evidence. That is including me. I will not be called as a witness in any court. Before we actually move ahead, there are some ground rules. So let us agree to some ground rules, and this is including myself. So let us participate and be active listeners and be open to suggestions and to hear the other person's point of view. Let us also be respectful and courteous with one another, and always maintain the decorum of this particular process. We shall refrain from using any kind of unparliamentary language at all times. In the event we end up coming to a settlement, and I'm very hopeful of that, we will be signing a settlement agreement. So I would like to once again hear from the parties about the power of the authority you have to sign as well as to take decisions for settlement, if any. So if I have that confirmation from the parties, thank you. Thank you so much. So with that, let us start. I'm going to request the responding party to let the Sarpanch let us know why he is here, so we understand from him a little better as to how we can do this. Thank you.
Thanks so much for, I really appreciate the presence here, for coming staff. Actually, I come here with
A lot of hope and worry, and you giving that opening really helped to reassure me more. Let me tell you that I come here with a lot of hope and a lot of worry because a lot is at stake. A not for me, not just for my village, Panchayat, but for the entire state of Gao. Allah is riding on this mediation for us. And that is why I think it's so important to be upfront about these emotions, about what is at stake. And I hope that through this mediation, we can both better understand these concerns. Now, Bill, I don't know how familiar you are with Gao, but this is a state that generally lacks educational institutions, hospitals, and commercial establishments. We don't have much, but we are still proud people of our state. Now, we have this opportunity to invest and build a marina in the village of Panchayat. Now, this is a significant opportunity for us. And really, it's not just economically, but socially as well. Because this gives promise of not only investment into our village, but also into Gao. It promises things like a primary school, something that our village lacks, a hospital for basic care and needs. These are all amenities important to us. Even further infrastructure or transport to lead to other cities. I won't lie, Gao is on the decline. And it is through this project that we really hope to reinvigorate not only the people, but the entire community at large. For us, what is important is really sustainability. Economic sustainability, social sustainability, and environmental sustainability. Of course, our main priorities are currently on economic and social. But that doesn't mean that we completely disregard the environment. I think that's important for us to set out. Another important thing, which is really one of my key interests, is really the reputation that we have with this project. The fact that the Chief Minister of Gao was willing to enable this means that at the top level of government in India, that means we are getting support for a project to further help our state. And it is only with a good reputation that we can go through with this and hopefully get even more programs in future that could benefit all of us. I hope you understand that this is only means so much to me because I, as the head of the village, really believe that this is my job, my duty to serve my people, and it's a chance for me to have a greater involvement not just in my village, but in the entire Gao. Right? And it's with this understanding that I hope you'll be able to better understand our concerns. Thank you. I will now pass the time to my esteemed environmental lawyer, Mervyn.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Sashi. And also, thank you, Prem and Pranja, for making time to be here today. I understand that, this might be a difficult conversation to have, and that's why we really appreciate you guys coming to the table here. And, thank you so much, Bill, for really letting us know the ins and outs of mediation. I think that really set us on a good path for the rest of today's discussion. Now, full transparency, I was one of the locals from the village that actually moved away in my earlier years. I can attest to the facilities or the lack of facilities in these villages. And that's why when I heard about the project, I was once again extremely excited for my hometown. In my short time working with Simon, I can tell that he is extremely dedicated to his people. And he comes here with two main interests, truly to uplift the community. Firstly, that is sustainability. And we all understand this is a multifaceted concept. And this can be broken down into economic, social, and environmental sustainability. Secondly, is reputation, because this is important for us to get the project off the ground. Now, that's also a bit of why we came to the mediation table, because there has been some concern generated by the public, right? And Nosachi recognizes the importance of community, even between separate villages. And that's why we're at the mediation table today, to settle this amicably, so that everyone can move forward together. Now, before we build a successful Gao, I think we have to first build a successful mediation. And this will consist of two elements. Firstly, a discussion on impacts. This can be broken down into 3 subcategories we mentioned earlier, that means social, economic, and environmental. And this would necessarily include positive and negative impacts. Secondly, a discussion on reputation and how we can continue to push this forward, whilst keeping into account the interests of all the stakeholders at hand. Now, this might be, a normal thing for some of the villages here and for Gar, but I believe, with the help of Bill and this mediation forum, we can really push forward and reach a solution that meets everyone's interest. Now, I think, we're a good time to pass the time back to Bill to, further guide this session.
You're able to see the state grow. With M, because you've seen the earlier state, it becomes even that much more important. There have been 2 principal issues you have identified as what you would like to discuss for the day, and that would include the impact, that would be social, economic, as well as the environmental impact of this project and how you plan to tackle it. As well as, of course, the issue of reputation, which is also something that is concerning you to a great extent. Have I got you correctly? Is there anything that I have missed? Thank you. So Prem, as well as Pranjal, you've heard what Shashi and Em had to say. What would you like to say? What brings you here to the table, and what is it, and how would you like to put forward, your point of view as far as this is concerned?
Thank you, Mr. Bill. Greetings, everyone. So it's wonderful to hear that you want us here, Sashi. So Sashi, you've grown in the village, and I'm pleased to hear Mr. M is also from Goa. So you have grown in Nature's Lab. So every day my morning starts in the Nature's Lab. I go and meditate. So today I was meditating under this tree here in Goa itself, and a flower came and dropped in my lap. And I thought that this is the nature's signal that something good is going to happen today. We are at crossroads at various levels on various situations we need to discuss. But I strongly believe that a positive outcome will come from this session. And also, at any point, if you feel, Mr. Kamal or Mr. Dev, that a point is not being heard or not being addressed, please do flag it up. We'll wish to intervene, we'll take the help of the mediator so that we have a clear discussion as much as possible. Lastly, I want to reinstate that everything that we discussed today should be under the larger picture, should be in the view of a larger picture, under the larger umbrella. What is the larger umbrella? Development of God. Indeed. Are you okay, Mr. Kamal?
Are you feeling all right? Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Kamal.
No, sorry, please go on.
Are you sure, Mr. Kamal?
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah, so everything discussed today or done today should be in the view of the larger picture of development of God. Development indeed, but a sustainable one. Not at the cost of the ecology of the area, the traditional livelihood of the area, or the cultural heritage of the area. I represent the interest of not only the people of Gaul, but the neighboring villages, the people living outside. Because, Mr. Kamath, you're from the region, you understand. I've been talking to these fishermen lately, and all I see on their faces is despair, a sense of insecurity with the announcement of this project that might come and take away their livelihoods. So that is really important. I have worked, and may come across as a passionate thing, but I've worked all my life for people like this. And I want to clearly state their interest at this negotiation. And if Gaul is impacted, not only the people of Gaul are impacted, but the neighboring villages villages are impacted to a certain to an extreme extent. And this all results in a snowball effect which destroys the entire water body in that area. That is very important. Just a basic, I am a layman, just a basic example, even if a pond is removed from an area, there is a negative effect to the entire environment. So we are talking of an entire culture, the landscape of the area is being changed. So imagine the impact. We as a coastal body, God is already facing climate crisis, rising sea levels from this global warming. If we completely change the ecology of the region, we might go to a point where there is of no return, which is really important. I echo the sentiment presented by Mr. Kaur. We are proud people of our state. Reputation is important for us. We are there to work out that arrangement as well. But as proud people, the cultural heritage is also very important. The discussion of sustainability, as Mr. Kamil said, is really important in all three aspects. And we must delve into the impacts, the environmental impacts, in deep details that this project can impact. The factual scenario is well tabled by Mr. Kamil. So I believe there is lack of amenities, but the Marina project in its current form is not the only solution to solve the problem of amenities. And that has to be considered. And I have fear that if the Marina project in its current form comes, Gaul might become the next Hawaii of 2023, where there were extreme wildfires because of not a proper impact assessment being done and overdevelopment in the region. So lastly, not taking much time, through this mediation, I want to achieve three important aspects. First, the protection of Gaul's ecology, highlighting the devastating impact that the Marina project in its current form may be, without proper environmental impact assessment, without any mitigation strategies, without any clarity of what it might entail. Secondly, the protection of traditional livelihoods, the fishing industry. There is a lot of things that can be done for the fishing industry. We can invest fresh capital because these fishermen did face the problem of freezing and storage. The fishing industry is really important. Lastly, the current cultural heritage needs to be protected. We have been in close connection with the CM. And the CM also recognizes this, that this region has cultural heritage which it draws from the fishing culture. The reputation is important, but our reputation has strong roots in this culture which needs to be preserved. Now I'd like to hand it over to my counsel, Pranjal, who's more than a counsel for me. He's been my confidant. And as you might know, I've indulged in a lot of environmental litigation, and he's been a partner through. He's passionate about this field. He is from village himself, and he knows what needs to be done. So, Pranjal, over to you.
Thank you so much. Greetings, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Bill, for explaining the process so succinctly and helping us become comfortable in this session. Because I think, as you said, comfort is key for both the parties here. Thank you, Mr. Kama, because at the Chief Minister's insistence, we both are here. It's good to see you. It's good to talk to Mr. Morgan as well. Your application precedes you. I understand that there's a cultural difference in the room as well. I think we all can keep that in mind. If you want us to repeat anything, please let us know. As you said, there's difficulties with the mic as well. So if that's an issue, please let us know as well. I hope you're doing fine now. So, Mr. Kamal, Mr. Bill, my role here is a bit different. Mr. Prem is a passionate individual. His work, his scene, his talk with people in the area. He knows what he's talking about. He's an expert in and of himself. I am here in an advisory and facilitative capacity. I'll only intervene if I feel that my client's interests are not being addressed or are being ignored. So that's the time I'm intervening. But other than that, I'm here to supplement what my client thinks or rather decides for himself. For the capacity to decide is with my client. Now, I personally am well versed with the constitutional or environmental angle when it comes to development in coastal regions. And we've seen that in various jurisdictions how problematic it can be when you get development in the area and try and force it from top down. Even cultural heritage has become such a subject right now, and Mr. M would actually agree with me that even WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, says that traditional knowledge must be protected even if it's at the cost of economic sustainability. WIPO says that you need to find out alternative methods to protect traditional knowledge but also ensure economic stability in the area. These cannot be balancing acts that reduce traditional knowledge. So when we see even Western countries accepting this fact, it speaks to the fact how passionate individuals like Mr. Prem can make change, even in the most entrusted regions where Western countries don't allow the third world approach to go. But not becoming too technical, but yes, I think environment will be a factor that needs to be discussed. Certain case studies might come up in the session, they might have an example they want to give us. We have a couple of examples we want to talk about, because we feel that it's important to address these while being practical. Mr. Prem has talked about what are the 3 pillars in this mediation session for us, and I would like to propose our part of the discussion points based on those 3 pillars. We would like to start talking about traditional livelihoods first, because that's some sort of traditional knowledge that has to be protected, and we feel is not being protected because there's a top-down development threat. Secondly, we want to talk about ecology, because I think environmental sustainability is something they have also put forward as a talking point, so this actually synergizes that way. And we also want to talk about the cultural heritage, which in a way forms part of social sustainability, because if socially cultural heritage is not protected, then that sustainability part goes on. So I think these are the 3 talking points we wish to focus on. Obviously, traditional livelihoods can also be in a way merged with economic sustainability if the other team so requires, and we can discuss these agenda points in a more flexible sense. So that would be our recommendation. Again, a very big thank you to you, Mr. Bill, and a very big thank you to you, Mr. Bill. Thank you.
So, Prem and Pranjal, thank you for giving us an overview of what is your point of this entire discussion. From what I have understood, and you can correct me if I'm not got anything right on that end, I see that you are genuinely concerned about the environment, and so also the development of ball. That's also something that sort of you want to be interested in. The major aspects that you wish to look at, and what you see as the crux of the problem really is in terms of the sensitive ecology getting affected, and therefore also very importantly the traditional livelihood getting hampered because of probably the funding of the project. There are 3 issues that have been pointed out by you, Prem, and then of course reiterated by you, Pranjal, which talks about the traditional livelihood of the people being hampered or destroyed in any way. The ecological balance that requires or needs to be maintained, and 3, with regard to a discussion on cultural heritage. Alright? So to be able to set the agenda on this and to take this forward, I'm going to actually use the board and put these out, because we have points that have been raised by Sarpanch Sashi as well as Prem, and we're going to try and see what are the common grounds that we can actually start this discussion. Alright?
Sashi and Prem on the board, because I think these are interests that I'm both of our interests. So I mean, in the spirit of joint collaboration, we are willing to take your interest as ours. And maybe we could also add one more point on solutions. And because I hear from your opening statements that this is extremely important to you, the project in its current form has a few concerns, no solutions we can talk about. Maybe changing the form of the project, implementing new measures. I think we are open to looking at ways we can address these concerns.
We take your point, Mr. M. I think every agenda that we proposed was through a solution-focused lens, and that's why Ray and I talked about how we want this to go good for both the parties, and we really appreciate how we have set the agenda in such a mutual fashion, and looking forward to the joint session.
Thank you so much, Em, for rubbing off the differences and just centering all of us to amicable solution. So let us start. We can start off with discussing sustainability first, because that I think is something that is most important to everyone here across the table. So Shashi, would you like to start?
Yeah, I would. And, I think I have a bit of ringing in my ear, so please bear with me if I need to repeat anything. From what I heard, the real concern here with the traditional livelihood was because it was a top-down approach. I'm here to assure you that actually this was something approved by the village committee itself. It's something that we have strong local support for, not just within our village, but others in Gao. And if this is your only concern with the fact that it's top-down, then I think we can reassure you that it is in fact not. What we can even propose further, if you want, is just doing something simple like an opinion poll. I think if you wanted results, what we can do is have this option of a survey to see how many people want it. And I can assure you that, in fact, a lot of people do want this, not just in our village, but in the rest of the world. Will this sort of target the interests of making sure that it's on the ground for you?
Thank you, Sashi. There's no disputing the fact that the proposal was approved by the Gram Panchayat, the Sabha, everyone. But we are here not only representing the interest of the village of Gaul, but neighboring villages as well. People who have Gaul as their hometown and go back after a while. So especially the community, the fishing community outside Gaul, in the neighboring villages, is being directly affected by this project, because there is complete uncertainty on the impact that it will have on the ecology and take away their traditional jobs. I understand that there has been a crisis in terms of the fishing jobs over a period of time because of lack of capital. The numbers of people practicing this traditional livelihood has reduced, but doesn't mean they can be ignored if a project comes away. So, Pramil, would like to add anything to just help us in that direction?
Just a quick clarification. The village of Panchayat is separate from all the state, and at least to our understanding, you are under the impression that the representing other villages.
So, just to clarify, the state is Goa. The Gaul is the village, the nested hamlet that we have, this beautiful picturesque place that we have. And I'm also, the petition also represents other villages that I'm filing before, that I might file before the Supreme Court. So I guess, Pramil will take it from here.
So just to clarify this, before we move ahead, we have the village of Goa. The village panchayat is Gaul. And Mr. Prem is representing the concern of the environmentalists from in and around that area, the villages close to Gaul as well, which according to Mr. Prem are probably in this loop of facing some kind of ecological crisis. So that is just a little sort of a clarification that probably may be necessary at this point.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bill, for putting it so succinctly and clarifying the position. I think just to add to what Mr. Prem said, it's important to understand the snowball effect, as he put it. Once you try and hamper with the ecological balance in a particular area, especially when it's on the coast, See, water bodies are not something that's separate. It's a continuous coastline. We have a rocky coast here. Maybe in some other places it's a sandy coast. With sandy coast, there's always problems of flooding, etc. So when we are dealing with a lot of villages, their concerns become ours. So that's the first point that has to be talked about. And I think in that breath, I'd actually like to inquire as to what is the status of the environmental impact assessment, especially in its interim form that it's being conducted right now. What sort of results have these produced, and are there any mitigation strategies that the VMCSL bunch has in mind for?
Okay, so I think we know, Bill, that we are going to jump straight into the agenda, and I think now we're going to be focusing on the environmental sustainability portion. And I think we do hear your inquiries on the environmental impact survey. And so actually, we already have done an environmental impact survey. There are two reports by experts in the field of maritime studies. And this is firstly, the rapid impact assessment report, and secondly, the long-term environmental concern report. So studies have been done, and these studies are targeted to look at what are some of the impacts and what are some of the measures that we can take to mitigate these impacts. So I'm sure that Sachi would be happy to share some of these measures and some of the results of this assessment. But before we jump straight to that, maybe to understand a bit more from your end and from the ground, what are if there are any specific environmental impacts that you hope to possibly address alongside the report?
No, I think we can go with Mr. Sashi's explanation of the environmental impact reports that we talked about, and maybe then Mr. Prem will jump in.
Sure, so no specific, just a general concept of the environment.
You guys don't have a specific area of the environment.
We start with a general understanding from your side, and I think then we can chime in.
Okay, sure. I mean, let's give so preliminary, since we're also on the topic of economic, I think for those benefit, we'll just try and keep those options there. One of the ideas we have is to set up a separate jetty for the fishermen to continue with their fishing. So this will be tandem with the construction of the marina, which will ensure that the fishermen are able to continue their livelihoods and also that we get constructed. Another one that we will be able to do is basically zoning. So what we can do is identify high-risk areas that are more prone to, from what I was advised, things like sedimentation when reconstructing beaches into marina. So that's the second idea, right? Let me give you one more idea, and after that maybe I can get Bill's help to summarize all this. And our last idea, sorry, not last, but the third idea is that we can also have an ecological disaster management committee. So what this will do is look at the vessels that approach the marina and ensure that things like green fuel is being used, and basically no pollutants are in the water. So of course we can go further into the nitty-gritty, and I have put out a fair bit of things. Brian, please let me know which one you'd like to further discuss more, but if I can get your help to summarize everything.
Shashi, for giving us an outline of what it is that you propose to take up as steps to protect the environment. So I'm just going to put it across. So the suggestions that are coming from Shashi at this point of time talk about creating a separate jetty alongside the marina. This will probably help the fishermen to be able to continue their livelihood. In fact, it will support them and make it probably easier for them to execute that. Also, they propose the zoning of high-risk areas, so where probably the impact of this will be curtailed to the least possible. Am I getting that right? High-risk areas. And last but not the least, for now, because they are suggesting clearly that this is the third idea, and probably they have some more ideas which they can propose at a later point of time, to constitute a ecological disaster management committee that will look into these affairs to kind of safeguard and protect the area. And this would probably also include aspects like using green fuel and pollution control mechanisms to have everything coming in place. Is Is that all right?
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, so would you like to consider some of these and maybe respond to them, friend?
Thank you, Mr. Bill. Thank you, Sashi, for those insights. But carrying on, like you told me about the rapid impact assessment and long-term impact assessment at starting. My understanding of the region comes from interacting with local fishermen. So I have two clarifications that I'd like to ask, so to better understand. So this jetty service that, so before even I come to the jetty service, from what the discussion that I had with the fishermen was that if there is any kind of development in that region, any kind of, you bring outside construction materials, anything. So what happens is the fish in that region leaves that region for a long period of time. That's the local understanding. So do you have any proper reports that in the assessments that you've done that say that this will not happen, so it will become a reassuring factor to them on good record? Second, this jetty that you're proposing, will it be for just the 50 fishermen that live in Gaul, or the areas, neighboring villages, will it cover everyone? Lastly, you talked about zoning in high-risk areas, but considering that Gaul has a rugged coastline and devoid of any sandy beaches, the sedimentation should not be a problem that you are trying to solve. While the Ecological Disaster Management Committee is much welcome, and we can discuss the details and flesh it out later. Anything else that you want to add, Ranjan?
Yeah, so just to put it in a structured fashion, the first concern that Prem is raising is about fishes moving away from the area when the marina is constructed first. Second concern he is raising is whether the jetty service, if the fishes stay in the area, will be only for the village of Gaul or the neighboring villages as well. And the third thing that we are talking about, that Prem talked about, how sedimentation is not really a problem. So a mitigation strategy to that effect may not be something that we are looking for. So that's the key main.
Okay, so I think thank you so much for that summary of the three main points. I note that this is commenting on some of the options that we have proposed, so maybe we can answer them in turn. So I guess for the first one, to directly answer your question with regards to the contents of these reports, I'll say we do not have any specifics as of yet. We do not have any specifics with regards to that particular question you have with regards to whether the fish will migrate. I think a second, when I address the second question, that might inherently link to each other, because on your second question on the jetty, we know the question on where this will be built and who will be able to access it. So the way this jetty will work is that it's going to be built on a neighboring coastal village. I mean, in between the border of our village and the neighboring coastal village. Okay, Sashi actually has good relations with the other Sarmat, and I think he can explain a bit on that later. But the idea is to set up this fishing jetty on the boundary of both villages away from the marina project. So this helps with two things that I think you express concern about. Right? Firstly, it is located in an area where it is not near the marina development. So necessarily, this means that the fish in that area would not be impacted by some of the concerns you mentioned earlier. Secondly, it is on the boundary of both villages, so that it's easily accessible by both villages. Now, I know that we have one more thing on the committee, but before that, maybe I can pass my time to Sachi to add on a few things.
I mean, Prem, I appreciate that you're very inquisitive into our options. And I just want to note that since you said it's okay to do so, I don't really feel like I'm being heard at the moment, because I think we've been doing a lot of helping you, and we're trying to meet your interests as well. I mean, I hope that you can also understand that from our own interests of economic and social development. I mean, getting basic amenities like primary education, hospitals and more. But yeah, I think we would also appreciate if there was some understanding on our end in what we're trying to implement and do. Having said this, I mean, we can talk a bit more about the committee if you like. But otherwise, yeah, do let me know what you prefer. Oh, sorry, I noticed that Bill, you want to say something, so please feel free to do so.
Whatever you ask.
So, Shashi, I can understand your concern. that you feel you're not being heard, because probably a lot of time has already been taken up on this. But we're coming, I think, really close to trying to see, because you've given a response to the question, so we can get a quick answer from them, and then we can move on to discussing the next issue that we'll be looking at. So what they are suggesting really, Shashi and Hem at this point of time, is to answer some of the questions that you've raised in terms of whether it's the fishes moving away or the jetty moving, who all will be able to access it. I think those answers have come from them. So in terms of what they're saying to your response, so would you like to do a quick response to that, so that we can then probably take on the other issues that are concerning Shashi and Hem?
So, on the topic of the amenities that are needed, so like I said in my opening statement, in principle we completely agree that the basic amenities are needed, but as I also highlighted, the Marina project is not the only way to do this. So in principle I agree, but for us to be satisfied with the Marina project, we need that's what we're trying to do. We need more insights into the environmental impact assessment that they've done. So currently, so they've given me a bit about that the reports are not confirmed yet. So on the three aspects of sustainability as we talk about, on the economic aspect, so when we have complete on good record reports that the fishes won't be impacted to a great extent, or even a decent extent where these livelihoods are threatened, I can assure the fishermen in that area who I work closely with that there's no need to worry in that aspect. So once those reports are finalized, we can add on to that. And I would also like Mr. Shashi, as he's very close, he's been talking with the Chief Minister lately, that he invests something in building storage capacities, freezing capacities, because I believe the fishes of this region are of extreme top quality. With even using methods such as, if I'm not wrong, it's known as geographical indicated GI tag. Am I right, Panjan? So using GI tags, we can market these fishes in a much better manner and solve the problem of economic sustainability that we're talking about. And once, because the cultural heritage of this region comes from its traditional fishing knowledge, the problem of social sustainability, I also believe, will be solved. As people will remain in the village, it will be a cohesive environment. So I believe more insights into the reports on good records, not having a devastating impact on the region, will help us move forward, and that's where I start. Anything I'd like to add, Pranjit?
Yes, to just succinctly put forth my client's understanding and concerns, is that economic and social sustainability, be it schools, be it protecting traditional knowledge areas, comes from the fact when people assure villagers that their traditional livelihoods are not being threatened. Because if their traditional livelihoods and means of living are being threatened, then they are suddenly see red flags where it comes to these things. So I understand Sashi's concerns that there are some areas of social and economic stability that need to be addressed, but I think that the road goes through environmental sustainability, because the whole issue is of environment, and I think that's why there is a need to set up certain preconditions before the project moves forward, and that's why there's a need for greater mitigation strategy. So one of the few recommendations were freezing and storage availability for fishing. So this is an example, or rather a point that we put forward. If this can be a mitigation strategy as well, and form part of greater preconditions, we have some sort of an agreement on the environment.
I just want to say one thing before I ask Bill to help me summarize, because I think that was a lot of moving parts. You keep saying that the marina is not the only way for us to develop. You know, if you have another way, if you have some investment project that you can give us that can uplift my community, you know, I'd be more than glad to hear about it. But currently, this is a gateway for us to get a lot more investment from the minister. And this leads to a lot more opportunities that come in, both in the short term and long term. So I'll now hand the time to summarize, and then I'll address the rest of the questions to let me know.
Alright, so at this point of time, I think there are slightly different concerns that each of the parties have. From Shashi and I can see that you're really concerned about the village and the development and how important the marina project is, because you believe that is the key to bring about sustainable development. You are also willing to consider certain aspects which will still be able to protect the ecology, and so you're working towards that in terms of creating the jetty, as you said, slightly away from the marina project so that it can protect. This is from the understanding that I'm getting from you. You're also in a way willing to create the other aspects that we've spoken about earlier, like creating these committees that will look into the affairs and to ensure that ecology is maintained to its best. So this is where I understand where you are coming from. These are the aspects that they are concerned about. However, what is most important for you is that the environment, the economic issues which the state and particularly the village is facing, that needs to be addressed, and you see that the marina project is probably one of the only ways where that will come to the villagers and it will help the village flourish back again into probably what it was a long time ago. What I understand from you, Prem, as well as Pranjal, is that your primary concern, it's not that you're unwilling to listen to what the opposite party is saying, but what you are looking for is probably some kind of authoritative reporting to ensure that the ecology will not kind of be harmed or damaged. Your main concern also is maintaining the local heritage as well as ensuring the livelihood. You are also willing to consider aspects like you said, the storage facilities that can get created, where it helps in the livelihood as well as the economic growth of the state. So both of you, from where I can see, are actually coming from the same space. It's just that probably the ways that you're looking at it will be slightly different. So as much as you're saying that you're in a way not completely averse to what the project is, so long as the environmental aspects of it get covered. And what you are trying to say is that you will try and protect the environment as much as it is possible and to ensure that the ecology is safeguarded, but yet wanting to carry on with the project because you believe that is definitely most important for the points that you have put up. So at this point, is there something that you would like to say that can bring about some kind of consensus that we can take this forward to discuss how it is possible for us to have the project as well as the ecological balance that all of us are really concerned.
I think actually Mr. Prem had an idea regarding it to solve this. If Mr. Shashi would like to go first, we can go with it.
Yes, because Shashi would like to say something. I believe Prem has an idea, so maybe you can suggest something of how you look to resolve this, and then we can have Prem share his idea.
I think we are very flexible. We've really thrown out a lot of options for you, and we're quite accommodating for your other requests. We're open if you want further reports. We can share them. No issues with that. We are also not sure why the jetty idea of shifting it away. It's not meeting your interests. So actually we wanted to know more about that first. But you know what? If you also have your own option to share, I mean, we've already proposed quite a few. So we're also open to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Shashi. So my idea for the entire thing is that there has to be preconditions that come with the INVA project. The preconditions being the proper assessment. I understand you are okay to share the reports, but I believe that comprehensively going through those reports are really important. Because I was discussing this with Pranjal and he mentioned the elephant beach at Port Blair, where there was, what happened is that for the initial part, the impact assessment was not properly done. It was rushed in a manner, and the tribal people of that region are suffering in the long term. So I come with a long-term view. While I completely understand the basic amenities, I live in that area. But the long-term view cannot be ignored. That generations down the line cannot say that our forefathers did not do a proper assessment of what can be done. I like Pranjal to elaborate more on that example and stress that why I feel the jetty is important, but has to be coupled with other measures as well. while the reports of fish not going away comes on good record. But that good record is really important.
Yes, to put this offer in a more succinct manner and to clarify it for you, Will, as well, if you would like to put it on the board, if that's something that you would prefer, that can also be done. The first thing that we propose is that the project go forward, but with precondition number one, that the long-term environment impact assessment that would be provided to us by M and Sashi does not put any red flags on the long-term sustainability of the marine. If there's a red flag such as major flooding in the area, wildfires like Hawaii, something like that, that's not something we will support, or the locals for that matter will be able to support. Because as of now, this report is neither with the locals nor with the people who decided on the matter. This environmental impact assessment has happened just right. That's point one. Point two, regarding the jetty idea. We understand that jetty idea can be a good idea if the fishers move out of the region. So that is something we are willing to consider, provided it is coupled with storage and freezing facilities for the fishes. Because you're saying that fishermen have to go far from the coast in a jetty that you are giving, take the fishes, come back, and then immediately sell it off in an area where economic activity is developing. If that's not done, even the 50 people that are left will never be able to go fishing, point one. Point two, people who have left fishing now because they couldn't do it will never be able to come back. And we want to prevent these traditional knowledge methods from disappearing. And I think Mr. Payne would add a couple of
And just adding to it, that is the current that if I want to ask, Mr. Shashi, that if we also preserve the ecology in a manner of some kind of the rugged coastline that we already have, because we need to also understand that Gaul is also an attraction for people who want to find solace, people who want to live peace, don't want to be crowded in those sandy beaches that are offered everywhere. So something on that aspect, tourism on that aspect can also be searched for. That would be really great.
So, Shashi, I believe M and you want to say something, so please go ahead and then we will come back to this.
Thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it. Actually, I know we don't have much time left, but would I check if it's possible for us to go into the caucus? If it's not wise to do so because of our limited time, do let us know.
We are actually in the last 10 minutes, and as per the rules, we're not allowed to have a caucus. However, with the due permission from our expert assessors, if you may allow for a caucus, we can have a caucus.
Give you 5 minutes extra, you decide whether you want to have a caucus.
Sure, we would like to have the caucus, if that's possible.
Yes, since the requesting party has asked for a caucus, I request my fellow session supervisor to escort the responding party.
Thank you,
Outside.
Rajat, for being accommodative.
Caucus shall last for 5 minutes, and it will happen off mic.
Make sure you have that street and fish.
So yes, Shashi and tell me, what is it that you're really expecting from
Speak a little slowly.
responding party back into this bank.
So, Prem and Pranjal, I had a little private discussion with Shashi and M, and they are a little concerned because what they say is that they would prefer to discuss, because of the scarcity of time, maybe one particular issue, if at all we could agree to that, and then we can discuss that to see if we can arrive at least some sort of an agreement, and then maybe for the other pressing issues which probably need a little more time to discuss, we can take them up at some other point of time. Is that something that you are willing to consider?
Thank you, Bill. So, this is something that I was saying, because of the time paucity and the rules, we didn't take a caucus, I wanted to. So, I have two things. That is that first, anything that you told us that you want to guide the discussion towards one solution. But one scenario. But first, I would like to hear what you have to say about the solutions that you have put on board. Only then we can see that which issue would like to highlight. So the solutions on board is something.
Alright, so primarily when we are looking at it, what they want to look at is this particular aspect, but specifically with regard to the jetty, because I believe this has come in as a little bit of something that has been introduced to them at this point of time. So at this moment, if the jetty issue in terms of the livelihood and the upscaling of the fishermen is something that could be discussed, that's what has come as a proposal from Shashi.
So yes, we can obviously look forward to hear their proposal, and then maybe we can synthesize the discussion.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then you can take it forward from after you hear what is it that they have to say in terms of a solution that they are offering for this particular person.
Thank you so much for helping us with the modality.
Yeah, so,
Yes, Shashi, M, please go ahead.
yeah, so before we really dive into the idea of the jetty that we proposed earlier, maybe we could just Bill could help us recap, just note down some of the other options we raised earlier, so that in the next mediation we can really start afresh on these ideas. And then firstly is the zoning mechanism to identify more high-risk zones. Secondly is the committee of ecological risk management, especially for the jetty and the marina. I think this is extremely important, but of course, unfortunately, we don't have time to get into today. And also the idea of really sharing some of the assessment reports. I think that's definitely something we can look into doing, and something we can start the next mediation on. Now, I think moving back to the jetty idea that we had, and as well as the idea of adding in storage. So maybe Sachi, you have something to comment on that.
Exactly. I think it's a pity that we can't talk more, because we actually also wanted to introduce this idea of upscaling the fishermen as well. I mean, since they might be relocating, and some of them might not want to do that, we would ask if some of them would want to help contribute to the construction of the marina project, since they are familiar with the boats, or other sorts of skills that they might learn. But I guess we'll have to leave that for our next mediation as well. I think for now, we'll just focus on this idea of the jetty and providing of ice boxes. I mean, again, we need funding for this. I think you'll be surprised at how big some fish can be. So I'm not sure if we are able to provide some financial support for it, but otherwise we will need to go through this project in order to then have some the revenue to subsequently have these measures that you are insisting on.
Thank you for giving us your points, Mr. Sashi and Mr. M. I'd just like to point out a couple of, I'd not like to say inconsistencies, but rather some sort of small points that this offer may not be addressing right now. Whenever environmental impact assessments are carried out, the mitigation strategies are implemented from the day the project starts. We are not saying that there is no need for the project. We've already said that we are okay with the project, provided certain preconditions are met. And that's why the preconditions that we talked about were a long-term environmental impact report that does not have any red flags for the project. Regarding the jetty idea, I understand their idea, and that's why we accepted that idea along with a storage and freezing facility. We are not asking for ice boxes. Fishes cannot be sold immediately, especially in an area which is not as urbanized as Goa. That's why we need industrial storage facilities. This is a mitigated measure, which means when the environmental impact assessment is conducted, which as per Mr. M has been conducted, as soon as the project starts, these mitigating measures must be in place. So the operator of the project, which is a corporate, would be putting in place these measures. So that's the legal basis for this. And I think Mr. Prem would like to add.
Yeah, so I couldn't have put it better, Pranjal. The clarifications are as what Pranjal has said, but just the basic principles of everything that we agree today. And even in principle, we agree on the jetty ideas. Everything is contingent on a thorough investigation of the environmental impact reports, environmental impact assessment reports, showing there are no red flags, only showing that there is not a huge change to the ecology, irreversible damage. Only then that you can provide, which M said that we'll exchange. After a thorough investigation of those reports, having it in good record that the sustainability is not being impacted, only then we can, and principle, then we can agree to something wrong.
And if that report is not, in your eyes, favorable, does that mean you're just going to oppose this and let the village die?
It's not about letting the village lie, Mr. Shashi. And I see that the time's up, so I'd like to see to Mr. Bill to close the session. But really grateful for everyone being here. Really thank you, Mr. Bill. Go ahead.
Right, so that brings us to the end of the session. We will now allow the expert assessors to score all our participants. So I request you all to kindly wait outside.
There's no feedback from the fans.
Okay, I would like to thank the expert assessors and also congratulations to all the participants. Congratulations to all the participants.
I'll share the
Thank you.
While we're away, please stand there.